When you're making a mold bowl, the first thing you have to decide is whether or not you're going to do a hump or a slump mold. Now, the hump mold is where you are wrapping your clay around the outside of your container. The slump mold is when you are slumping clay on the inside of the container. Either one is fine for your projects. The only thing you have to think about is where you're putting all of your texture and where you're going to be building all of your decorative elements. If they're going to be on the outside, like in this bowl, she's carved all of this wood pattern into the outside and then also attached the butterflies on the outside. If that is the case, then you need to do a hump mold, which is on the outside of your bowl, because then while it's drying, you have the space to be able to do your bowl and get all of your textures in while it's drying on the bowl. If you're thinking, hey, I want to maybe create something inside, do some sculpting on the inside, then you need to do a slump mold, because then while the clay is drying, you can work on the inside of the bowl. Once you've decided which mold you're going to do, hump or slump, you are going to be covering your bowl with a plastic bag. That keeps your clay from sticking, and it also protects your bowl from getting clay inside it. So if you're doing a hump or a slump mold and you're putting your clay on the inside, you're just going to put your bag on the inside, press it down as much as you can to make sure it's as smooth as you can get it. And then for the outside bag, you'll take your bag, and this is just any old grocery bag. You can do saran wrap if you want to, but I like to reuse my grocery bags. There we go. Now it's pretty much ready for building. These folds in the clay or in the bag, you're going to be able to smooth out in your clay once you take your bowl off. For this project, you're going to be rolling clay out in a big slab. Now I already have mine rolled out, and if you need to know how to roll them out, you can look at the videos. But what you're going to be doing is, if you're at home and you've got your dowel, you're going to be rolling a slab that is about as thick as your dowel rod. So look at the thickness of that. That's what you're going to be rolling with. And you're going to roll a very big slab. So if you've got a bowl and you need it to be, if you're doing a hump mold, if you've got a bowl and you need it to be about, this is about 10 inches wide, you need to have your clay rolled at least that width before you start rolling out to make sure it is going to fit over your bowl. So you need to make sure that your clay is at least the width of your bowl when you start, and you can wedge it and then kind of roll it into a big kind of roll of clay here before you start rolling it out into a slab. I didn't make you watch me roll out my slab, but you can see what I mean. When I need to make sure it fits, I need to make sure that the width of my slab of clay is at least on the smallest end as wide as my entire bowl. That's how I know it's going to fit, or at least mostly fit. So this is my clay slab. It is about the same height as my dowel rod. You would rather it be a little bit thicker than too thin. So I'd rather your bowls be too thick than too thin. When you're ready to start your slump mold, you're going to make sure that the bag is on the inside, and then you're going to take the clay slab that you rolled out, and you're going to kind of drape it over your bowl first, and you're going to start gently pressing the clay into the bowl. You're going to have a good amount of extra clay, you can see here. That's okay, I'll show you how to deal with that. So I'm just going through and I'm just really gently kind of pressing my clay into my bowl, making sure that it's actually touching the sides, and I can pick up the clay on the edges to make sure, as I'm gently pressing along the sides, that my clay is meeting my bowl. on the inside. All right, so I've got this kind of big lump here, and that's because I have extra clay. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your knife tool and you're going to cut it right down the middle. So you should have this sort of loop here. You're going to cut it right down the middle. Okay? And then, this is kind of similar to your coils. You're going to lay them over each other here so that they're pressed up against the side. Then what you'll do is you'll cut through both of them as they're overlapped. And then you should have two sides that are pretty perfectly meeting in your clay. Now my clay is a little bit wet here. Okay. So then what you'll do with these two sides here, so they should pretty much perfectly meet. I can do some patching if my clay is really wet. And then I'm going to slip and score them. And then if I've got this kind of extra chunk here, I'm blending it all together and kind of just pulling any of that extra stuff off. I don't really want very many areas of my bowl to be thicker than the others. So I'm kind of just doing a gentle press here. All right, now I get to trim the edge all the way around and just get that extra clay off. Here's a good start to my bowl. If you've got a spot that's pretty low, you can either work it into your design. So this student worked a lower spot into her design because she wanted it to be able to see a little bit what was inside. But if you don't want that, one thing that you can do is you can just trim the rest of the bowl to be that height. So look at the height that it is all the way along the bowl. Set your knife Once my top is trimmed, I can go through and I'm going to start smoothing out that edge. And I don't have to taper it or anything, I'm just kind of smoothing it out. And then I'm ready to start building and adding all of my decorative elements. If you've got a lot of building to do, you might want to wait until this is a little bit more dry and holding its own shape before you do anything else with it. For your hump mold, I prefer this method because I like to put all of my decor on the outside. You'll take your large slab and you're going to try and center it all the way around. And if you've got any shorter sides here that don't hit the bottom all the way, you can try to push your clay all the way around. All right, so I've got sort of this little doorway here. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my clay so it's not stuck to the table, and I'm going to really gently start pressing my clay to the sides. And I'm going to do this all the way around. Once you've got this sort of doorway here in your clay, so you've got this sort of fold, you're going to do a similar process to when we were building the hump or the slump mold, and you're going to cut all the way through so that you've got a cut here, and then you will overlap them, and then we're going to cut all the way down here as well. Lift up the flap, pull that extra clay out, make sure my bag is going down. Then I need to slip and score my edges and blend them together. gonna cut off all of my extra pieces. Now I don't want to cut too much all the way around. So I'm gonna go a little bit at a time and just pull those big pieces off first. Once your clay fits tightly all the way around and it's trimmed so that you can kind of move your bowl all the way around, on the inside and the outside, you're going to do some smoothing. You can do that with your rib, but what you're going to notice is it's going to take a lot of clay off. So I just recommend going in with your sponge and just getting that canvas texture off. You're going to want, once you're all finished smoothing and everything, you're going to want to cover your piece with a bag and let it sit for a day or two. You want to make sure that the bag is not open. This will dry out really quickly if you leave the bag open. So you're going to cover it up, let it sit for a day or two, and see when you come back. It should be not leather hard, but the stage right before that. So you should be able to start sculpting on it and putting in all of your decorative elements.